see him anywhere. Before he even got to the job that he has a New York City public advocate, this brother was always in the front on the front lines doing his thing. I don't know what he got in that backpack that I always see him with, but he must be the dude's a superhero with that backpack on, man. Without further ado, the New York running for New York State gubernatorial candidate Jumaane Williams. Come on in, our brother, man.
Peace
to the brother. Peace to the brother, man. What's going on, Jumaane? How you feeling, brother?
You know, it's another day, another struggle, trying to make it through. How about yourself?
Man, we're loving life, man. Loving life, man. See, what you got? Oh, you must be on baby duty tonight, brother. You got the crib in the background.
You know, this used to be an office, but the Most High has blessed us, so I gotta split the office. It's the best split I've ever done in my life. So, you know, when I can't do downstairs, sometimes I do my stuff downstairs. I gotta be up here, but I have my baby girl in the background. The name.
Oh, that's what. All right, that's beautiful, man. That's
all right.
Congratulations.
So the baby's on the show too. The baby's on the show.
Right, that's what
my name is.
No secret play dates for Jumaane Jones.
Yeah.
So Jumaane, man, we're gonna talk about quite a few things, man, right now. But one of the hot topics right now is this gun violence that's going to New York. I mean, going on everywhere. We just had a shooting up at Buffalo. We just then fast forward. We had California. Then another fast forward. And then we had the shooting now in Texas where we have 19 young babies and 2 adults die from this insane shooting. What are your thoughts and what are your plans if the change, whatever policies in New York State now, do you have a plan to change the policies that are going forward?
I mean, this thing goes in so many ways because we have the mass shootings, we have the handgun violence that's killing most of our Black and brown folks on a daily basis. I was went up to Buffalo after going to a press conference for the 11-year-old that was shot and killed in the Bronx, a few weeks after the 12-year-old shot and killed in Brooklyn. And then all the things that you talked about, came back home with a man going to brunch, getting shot on the train. This gun violence is crazy. So one thing we know, the supply of guns, all of these things from white nationalism to someone getting angry, someone having beef, looks different if guns aren't involved. And so we definitely have to deal with the supply of guns that are accessible. Every illegal gun in our streets was legal at some point, which means there's a problem with the legality of all these guns that people have access to. We have 4% of the world's population, and over 50% of all civilian-owned guns are concentrated in this country. It's a problem. Then we have to deal with the demand because people don't need to be communicating with this type of violence. That's where I think our localities can do such a much better job if they would fund so many of the programs that we know are evidence-based to prevent this from happening. And by the way, none of this stuff is ever an excuse to shoot up a street. You have to be held accountable for that, and there has to be consequences for that. We just keep saying, how long are we going to spend more money on the consequences than the prevention of happening to begin with? And so I was a co-chair of the Gun Violence Task Force in the City Council. We put our first report out 10 years ago. It's 2012. And I got to say, in 2012, the same year the governor received her endorsement of the NRA, got an A rating. And so we've been working on since back then. Some of the issues and things they're bringing on right now, we've been talking about for years. Micro-stamping bullets so we can track and see what's happening. Just this past January, we put forth another report. I think it was my third report on public safety in general, focused on gun violence, saying the red flag law was not strong enough in this state. If somebody had been paying attention, we could have strengthened it. And we actually had what we needed to prevent that. Well, he was a teenager because of the color of his skin. Michael Brown was a man, the same age. Michael Brown was 18, unarmed, Black. He was a man. The AP called this person a teenager at 18 years old. Usually the color of your skin is what differentiates how they refer to you. But he would not have gotten that gun if this stuff was enforced. So we've been raising these issues for quite some time. I'm glad that we, finally have some folks paying attention to it. We'll see how long it lasts, man, because I got to tell you, I'm a little jaded. And I thought, in Sandy Hook, I really was like, these little angels that we lost, they're white. So something is going to be done. And when nothing was done, I was blown away. So we have a demonic obsession with guns in this country. And it is fueled by some people who literally just scared to lose their job. They're scared, not even their job, because a lot of them have jobs and have a lot of money. They're scared to lose a position.
The power.
Yeah.
People are dying, literally dying daily. And it's remarkable. And, both of these cases, Buffalo and Texas, they had quote unquote good guys with guns, and it didn't do anything to stop this person with a gun. More guns just equal death. That is all. And so we have a lot of policies, both on federal, state, and city level, to try to stop the supply. And we are asking, on the state, we ask for $1 billion for gun violence prevention, youth services, and victim services. Sometimes they lift up our Black and brown trauma to push more bad policy, but we know our victims need such services that they don't have access to. So we asked for that in the budget. We didn't get it. What we did get was $1 billion for a stadium to be built outside of Buffalo. It's not even in the area that has some of the most issues. I will end with saying, I think many of us, unfortunately, may know people who are no longer here we went to school with. I know people I went to school with that are no longer here. And we were told there were certain things around law enforcement and prison that was going to help with that. It didn't. What we can't do right now is say that the answer is to arrest the Black and brown children of the people we arrested 15, 20 years ago and think that's going to have any different result than it did last time. So we have to raise our law enforcement. We have to lift them up with transparency and accountability, but we also have to know that communities need more than that if we really want to attack this problem.
So let me ask you this question. First of all, thank you so much again for joining us. For people that may not know your record, what would you say is your greatest accomplishment as public advocate?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a first-generation American. I have Tourette's syndrome, ADHD, so you may see me shake a little bit. I'm as cool as a fan up here, though. I'm good. Made it through the public school system in New York from preschool to masters. I'm a community organizer by training. It was before Barack Obama, so no one had any idea what that was. My mother asked me, please get a real job. I had to tell her that actually is a real job. And then I ran for office. It was against an incumbent. They told me I had no chance. 6 people in the race. I'm a believer. I walk with the Most High, so I kept it moving. We did it. We won. I've been trying to cause as much trouble as possible during that time. One thing I'm most proud of is that folks told me you'd be limited in what you'd be able to do because you're too principled. You're pushing back. You got to choose between being an activist and being an elected official. I said I don't. The best elected officials are activists. And so I'm proud that we were able to show that you can push back against the status quo that is based on what's good for the elected official, not necessarily what's good for the people. And when I left the council, I was listed as the most productive council member. As public advocate, we've passed more bills than almost all public advocates combined previously with our relationship with the council. I think folks who happen to do know me know the work that we did around abuses of stop, question, and frisk. But I'm actually most proud of the work we did around gun violence. Because in 2018 and 2019, people didn't believe us when we said, look, we are actually really safe right now. You had the same people who were screaming about you hate police and you love criminals, all the other stuff. And we were saying, if you look at the numbers, we're the safest we've ever been. What you have to understand, though, is if you're a victim of crime, data means absolutely nothing to you. Could be one murder. If that's you, who gives a crap if there's nobody else got it? And we learned that you have to actually be safe and feel safe. Both of those things need to happen. But it's ironic now that people are looking at those years as the safest years. And I'm proud to have been a voice that helped get this city to that spot.
Yeah.
Jumaane.
Yo, go, Rob. You go.
All right. Thanks, Derek.
Yeah.
First of all, like Mr. Kelvin said, we welcome you to Let's Chop It Up, and we really appreciate you coming on the show. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's hear how you feel about your opponent, Kathy Hochul, and the job that she's doing.
I don't think she's doing a good job at all. Like when she came in, I told folks, I think she's actually very nice. She's much nicer than who we had before. But I told people that has to be the floor for governor. That can't be the ceiling. Everybody was treating that like it was a ceiling. And I said, if you wait, you're going to see that we're going to get more of the same or worse. I wish I was wrong because that means New Yorkers would be in better shape, but I wasn't. I ran against her in 2018. Everybody told me I was crazy. We only have no money, have no support. And we got more votes then than any non-white candidate ever in a primary. We got 47%. And so we almost got him if we had just got a little bit more support. You know, when she gave her State of the State last year, we said it was not a bad State of the State, except it could have been given before the pandemic. We have to have a new vision for a new state. And we lost 70,000 people in this state. The one thing we could do in their honor is stop saying, let's go back to normal. Because normal didn't work for them. It didn't work for the people who are listening now. It didn't work for most of us in New York State. And so we want to reopen in a way that's actually beneficial for the working, struggling folks of New York, not for the billionaires and billionaires. By the way, $220 billion were made by over $100 billionaires in this state during the pandemic, while most folks were suffering, dealing with evictions, foreclosures, trying to find food, trying to pay for medication. So her views on housing, on public safety, on where we spend our money. No money for housing vouchers, not the money we ask for gun violence prevention or foreclosure prevention, no protections for tenants. But we did get $1 billion for a billionaire to build a stadium. By the way, that billionaire hired her husband. And so we have a much different way of how we look at this stuff and who we're fighting for.
Yeah. Hey, Jumaane, this may sound like a silly question, but I'm from Long Island. I can't think of what an equal job is to, let's say, public advocate here. What are the responsibilities of public advocate? What are, for people like myself who live in Long Island who don't really understand what it is? We know that it's a very important job and it's in New York City, pertinent to New York City, but how does that translate for us out here in Long Island and what you do for governor? Well,
I'm gonna tell you, so I could also tell the people in New York City who don't know what the public advocate is. You're not the only one. So there's been 5 public advocates. I'm the 5th one. The one before me was Tish James. The one before her was Bill de Blasio. It's one of 3 citywide elected officials, 4 if you count the speaker. It's 5 charter mandated duties. God forbid something happens to the mayor, the public advocate is next in succession for becoming mayor. But the 5 charter mandated duties is you get to introduce legislation to the city council. You act as an ombudsman, making sure that people have a go-between between the city, the government, and the people. You're a charter cop. You're supposed to make sure that the charter that agencies are doing the job that the charter mandated they do. You have a vote on a pension board, and you get to appoint people to committees and commissions like the City Planning Commission, like CCRB, like the Conflict of Interest Board. And the 6th one is just not a charter mandate. It's the bully pulpit, because by virtue of it being an independent citywide elected official, you get to raise issues that other people may not bring up. I'm also very proud that, since the past couple of years when we've become public advocate, a lot of people have reached out, which means we've done a good job of elevating the position when people are looking and seeking, okay, what is this position? Will it be good for us where we are?
Okay, cool.
So people, please ask questions in the chat. We got Jumaane. Thanks for blessing us again. We're grassroots.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we had one of your opponents on there a couple of weeks ago. So I'm glad that you guys are on the show. Real quick, we had a Swazi.
Okay.
Yeah, he came on there. He was the first one.
I like Swazi. He's wrong on all the issues, but I like him.
It's like a true brother right there.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So listen, man, I got a question for you, man. It's pertaining to maternity health and infidelity that's going on. We see a lot of Black women and brown women dying. They're not getting the same kind of treatments in the hospitals and the hospitals. What are your thoughts? What are your plans to support women that's trying to get pregnant and opposed to women's health rights?
In New York City, the nation, I think, is like 3 times as likely for a Black woman to die simply because she's Black. In New York City, it's more closer to 8 times, and it's really bad all across the state. So my office, the Public Advocate's Office, we've been, and I always say there's a reason to have a diverse staff. My staff happens to have a lot of Black women at every level, and they raise this as an issue. And so a couple of years ago, we started pushing a package of legislation to try to deal with Black maternal health. I never knew how close it would hit home to me. And so my wife and I have been sharing her story. A week before we got married in July of last year, we found out she had cervical cancer. A week after, they told us we wouldn't be able to have any children. They had to go in there. It has a great ending, by the way. As you can see, my baby girl was born on February 14th. It was a miracle baby. But experiencing all that we went through, and I got to tell you, there's a marked difference that I didn't even understand until we found it was a Black woman doctor who actually cared and listened to what she had to say. The difference in care was night and day. And what was most striking is I have a daughter by marriage, and her first child she was given a C-section she didn't really need. But she said the experiences of when she was not married, had no career, and not a great insurance was very similar to when she was married, had a career, and had wonderful insurance. And so what that says is what most folks know: socioeconomic status has nothing to do around this. And our story ended by the grace of God and His mercy in a good way. We worked with a lot of people whose partners are no longer here. So that is one of the issues that we've been lifting up, and also sharing our story to try to encourage others to as well. Black maternal health and Black infidelity, I would say, is not talked about as much as it should be. I'm surprised we went through a long time actually trying to get pregnant. It was crazy, and they didn't give us all the information we had. Like they didn't tell us they saw a mass and everything, so we missed one of the things that we could have done, which was IVF. It's kind of in vitro. We were doing something called IUI, and so I thought we missed the opportunity. I was so mad at that. The Most High had other plans, and she miraculously got pregnant the old-fashioned fun way. So it was just, the Most High has been really great. But to go through what we go through and sharing our story, there's so many Black women and men who would say, thank you, come up to me and share what they went through and what they currently go through. So there's something big in my heart and in the things that we want to do across the state.
Jamie, can you bring up the questions from Sean? I'm sorry. And anybody, people have been texting me on my phone. I think we're having a hard time people getting the comments on YouTube, so I will read some of the questions of people that text me. But go ahead.
Okay. Sean, it says, what can be done to provide real affordable housing in this state, specifically New York City? Most of us can't afford to live where we grew up.
So my community organizing actually was around housing. I think I'm uniquely qualified in a bunch of different ways, a bunch of issues. I now know what childcare is about in a way I didn't. I had a business, and I fight also for workers. I know what it's like to have a small business. I have had tenants. I am a tenant. I've been Black for a long time, so I have all those experiences.
No, you Black? No, I thought you got a good tan, brother.
For a long time, brother. For a long time. I'm Black inside and out. Don't get it. Sometimes you just get one or the other.
We gonna ask you.
We know about that.
We gonna see how Black you are.
We're gonna find out.
The last question gonna pull your Black card. So we're
gonna see.
All right, go ahead.
But there's a marked difference between our plan and the governor's plan. Housing and public safety, the two things that I think are most important right now. So people remember the eviction moratorium. We all knew it had to end at some point. The fact that she ended it during winter and the Omicron surge was unconscionable. She also did it without any good cause eviction and without any program that we asked for to be fully funded to prevent foreclosures, because we don't want our small homeowners to be foreclosed on as well. Especially it hits the Black and brown small homeowners the most. And we have a plan. Her plan, just so you know, is to build and preserve 100,000 units in 5 years. That's not enough for one of the counties, much as the entire state. We have a plan to build and preserve 1 million units where people aren't spending more than 30% of their income. We don't like to say affordable housing. We actually try to say income targeted housing, because something is affordable to everybody. And so we have to make sure we have all of affordability at the incomes that people can afford. And so that plan, if we can get that in place, would be immediately have an impact. We actually asked for housing vouchers to be included in this budget. Unfortunately, it was not. We only had, and I want you to know the budget was stopped to get that $1 billion into that billionaire's hands. Stopped. She wouldn't pass the budget. What if you had a governor say, I'm not going to pass the budget until we get $1 billion for gun violence prevention, until we get housing vouchers in there? What a difference it would be right now. We also want to make sure we have funding in there to prevent people from being foreclosed on and for purchasing homes. We also want to make sure the public housing is fully funded. So we have a bunch of plans to address this immediately, because we've been working on it for such a long time, whereas I believe the governor is just learning on it. And there are people who benefit from high rents. We have, New York is the highest cost of living when it comes to rents right now, highest. And so there are people who benefit from high rents, high evictions, high foreclosures. Those are the people who are donating to the current governor. We are lifting up and trying to fight for the people who are suffering because of those things.
Hey, Jumaane, you've got some interesting things regarding rights for New Yorkers in their homes. Can you speak to those a little bit? What do you mean by that?
Say that again.
You want to give New Yorkers rights in their homes. All right. Let's say, what is good cause eviction?
Yeah. So a good cause eviction has been misconstrued a very long time. I have tenants. I've been a tenant, so I understand this. Good cause eviction basically says you have to give a reason. We have to give a reason for an eviction. That's all. They didn't say you can't evict, but you have to give a reason. That's the floor. And so if you want if someone is violating a lease, if someone wants the unit for their family, you can still evict the person. But what's been happening is there's been a lot of retaliatory evictions. There's been a lot of evictions that people are just doing because they want people out so they can charge higher rent. It also caps, because what we're seeing now is people whose rent are $1,200, $2,000, it's going up to $5,000. That's a de facto eviction. Like, we shouldn't be able to do that so much of a swing. An automatic lease renewal is important. I'll tell you, as a tenant organizer, when people would come to my home, trying to protect their home, and come to my office and say, look, this landlord's not making repairs, I first would have to ask them, are you rent regulated? Because if you are in New York City, one of the surrounding suburbs, if you're rent regulated, I can help you get that repair, but you may not get a lease renewal. And so they will evict you at the end of your lease. And so that prevented people from actually accessing the other rights that they have as a tenant, because if they access those rights, they will get evicted. And so good cause helps level that playing field all across the state. What people don't know, and people are talking about, particularly small homeowners, it exempts 1 to 4 owner-occupied property owners, just fully exempt. And so that's the baseline of protections we need, because we have 90-something thousand people who are facing eviction right now across the state. I'm sorry, who are homeless right now across the state. We should talk about housing and homelessness together. People talk about them separately. And we have over just about 220,000 people who are facing eviction right now. Without these protections, it's going to go crazy. And if we don't understand the connections right now after this pandemic between a safe and affordable place to lay your head and having health care, and what that connection is to public safety, then we'll never know.
So, Jamie, you bring up a couple of questions in the comments.
Okay.
Matt, can you read that one?
Yeah, Max says, how will you differentiate legal gun ownership from criminals? Criminals don't obey laws. 8.9 million people in New York City and 30,000 cops. They can't protect us all. 7 million new gun owners in America.
So every illegal gun on the street was legal at some point. You have the right, and you should have the Second Amendment right. But I want people to make sure that our Second Amendment right and how we choose to see it is what's causing all these murders, period. More guns does not make us safe. I just want people to know that. Even if you have a gun, if you've ever fired a gun, it actually makes you feel powerful. It also makes you do things you may not normally do because you have the gun, make you feel like you're a Superman. And you're actually more likely to kill someone in your home. That's just what the data is. But having a handgun in your home to protect your family is different than getting 4 and 5 handguns that you lose, quote unquote, as a dealer that ends up on our streets, and having access to machine guns, just war weapons. All these things are done to kill people as expeditiously as possible. You don't need any training for it. You don't need any insurance for it, but you can get it. That's all things that we have to look at and change. You don't need 4 and 5 guns. You don't even need 4 or 5 rifles. You don't need a machine gun at all. And so these are things that we have to look at. And I have to tell you, whenever legal gun sales go up, gun violence goes up. And so when this pandemic was coming through and we started seeing that people were having issues with their mental health, that's all of us, not even just acute mental illness, but all of us having mental health issues. We saw behavioral changes. We saw food insecurity go up. We saw housing insecurity go up. And we saw gun sales go from about 300 million to 700 million sales. We knew that we were going to have a problem. Right. 90,000 people are shot in this country a year, 30,000 die. a good portion of that is suicides. And so we have to curtail the unfettered access to guns. And yes, we want to make sure that people have, if they have a right to own a firearm, you have it, but that doesn't mean it's unfettered. And this differentiation between legal and legal, the problem is our legal gun system leads to illegality, period. And that's the things that we have to change.
All right, Jumaane, real quick, I got another question. This is from the person in the text. My name is Sandra. Affordable and quality healthcare is a serious issue. What is your plan to address the issue so everyone has access and ability to afford good healthcare?
We definitely believe and want to have universal healthcare. Everybody should have access to healthcare. Again, if you don't understand public safety and healthcare on how your neighbor's healthcare access affects yours during this pandemic, you never will. One of the problems is how do we pay for all this? And so one of the issues has been, by the way, healthcare and mental health are both things that we need access to in our community. We still don't talk about mental health as much as we should. It's getting better, which I'm very happy about. And even if we have the coverage of talking about it, we sometimes don't have access to what we need with culturally competent folks. But one of the things that has been problematic is the governor has made clear she will not raise any revenue. So she sat with a bunch of millionaires and billionaires and told them, we're not going to raise any revenue. We want you to come back to New York. I want you to pay attention because that is a line that is Republicans use to scare people who will never be asked to raise revenue to protect people who donate to your campaign. We're literally talking about the richest among us. And we're not saying it as a punishment. We're literally saying everybody has to do what they can with what they have where they are. If we don't raise any revenue, when we lose this one-shot money we got from the federal government, all hell is going to break loose. All of the things that we're trying to protect will be cut, much less the things that we need. We cannot have adequate housing and adequate health care unless we raise revenue, period. And so it's not the rich folks that are leaving. We lost maybe one millionaire. He has red hair. He's in Mar-a-Lago. He can stay there. But the people who are leaving New York are the people who cannot afford to live here. And that's the people that we're fighting for. The people working, struggling, people who are paying actually too much taxes based upon the income that they have, while people who are rich are not paying their fair share. We know property taxes are unbalanced. I am actually one of 5 city council members who sued, and this is just New York City, sued the mayor to try to correct that. It's even worse in some of the places around New York City. And so we have a way that we can help middle struggling New Yorkers, working New Yorkers with their taxes, but we have to raise revenue. And if we're not having a revenue raising discussion, we're not actually having a real discussion.
Jamie, bring up Shauna questions in Keisha and go ahead. What we got?
Yeah, Shauna says, what can be done to pay out teachers what they are worth?
Teachers definitely aren't paid enough. I will say, in New York, how schools are paid in New York City is different than how schools are paid in a lot of New York, including large parts of Long Island, where it's connected to property taxes. So we do have to change some of the school formula to make sure schools are getting the money that they need. In certain places where they are getting the money they need, we actually are not spending that money properly. But I do think teachers deserve more. I made it through the public school system. One, because my mother was annoyingly in my business, and I'm not sure if actually she'd have ability to do that now, the way the schools are structured and parents are not having access. And I always bring up Miss Jeannie Ned, my 5th grade teacher. I didn't have an inauguration because of COVID. If I did, she was going to be holding the Bible. She's a perfect example of teachers are not babysitters. They're instrumental to young people. Miss Ned had an affinity for knuckleheaded young Black boys. And I'm worried now that Miss Ned would be teaching to the test instead of having the ability and flexibility to deal with folks like myself, undiagnosed Tourette syndrome and ADHD, but she saw something, she knew something was going on and just needed a little additional attention, and she may not have been able to do that. So I always support our teachers and making sure that they should get the money that they're worth. But again, you can only spend money that you have, which is one of the reasons that we have to raise revenue.
Yeah. Jumaane, what's your rating on the current mayor, Mayor Adams?
There's a lot of things that we agree on. Unfortunately, some of the things that we disagree on seem to be taking a lot of the space. I am concerned we may be trying to do some of the things that we have learned doesn't work, just because public safety is a hard discussion to have when crime is down. It's even harder to have when crime is going up. And sometimes you feed the fears that people have about how to solve the crime. And all I want is people to be safe. I worked a lot with Eric Adams as borough president around gun violence issues, and I'm looking forward to the things that we spoke about and have worked for to actually be structured in a real way. So right now, anywhere you go, you can call 911 24 hours a day and get that service. There's no other service that you can do that, and that's a problem. So if we want to respect our law enforcement, we have to stop asking them to do all the jobs that other agencies haven't been funded properly for. Most police departments have unlimited access to overtime, but let's say a Department of Health and Mental Hygiene does not. So how are they going to do their job? Children's Services does not. We have community groups that work on violence interruption, fighting to get 8-hour shifts, but violence is happening 24 hours a day. And so there's a way we have to structure and recreate and then co-create public safety in a way that we're not. Also, certain things like tearing down encampments when people have no place to go that's the last thing that we have to do. And, we may have to get to it, but there's a whole bunch of steps we have to do before that. And so, I know that being mayor is a hard job, so I always just point that out. And my hope is that the things that we agree on is going to get a lot more attention, funding, and structure in the near future.
Jumaane, let me ask you this question. While you're on the trail and while you're campaigning, people will be obviously telling you what they want you to do and what they need. As a New Yorker yourself, if you take yourself out of the candidate spot and just as a voter, what would you want to see? What is something that is important for the next governor of New York to have in your estimation? What does the next governor need to possess or exhibit?
Well, the three pillars, just so you know, that our campaign is based on is housing, public safety, and a transformative economy. Those are the three things that are probably universal. They look a little different depending where you are, because your space has a unique culture and the government may not be operating the same way locally, but those three pillars are affecting everyone. But we also need a governor that understands, we need elected officials that understand the seat they're holding is not more important than the people they represent. And so Albany has been operating a certain way for a long time, and this governor has been a part of that. The former governor, I think, was very harmful. I was clear about that. People got courage as he got weaker and they started speaking out, but there were people who enabled either silently or explicitly. We've been clear for years that this was a problem. And if you're going to shake up Albany, you shouldn't try to do it with someone who helped and was gained power in that same system. And so the two differences. One is I'm more proud of how I lost the lieutenant governor's race than I would have been if I won it the way that this current governor won. Second is on day one, the governor's going to immediately start thinking about, if she won, how do I win the next election? I'm going to be immediately thinking about, how do I rock this place as much as possible so that it's operating on behalf of what's best for what's the people of the state, get reelected or not. I didn't get elected to get reelected or to go to high office. I would like to do both of those things, so I'd love to have everybody here support. I want to be clear about that. But that's not my focus. My focus is to do the job, and I hope that gets me reelected, and I hope that gets me to higher office. It may not, but I got to tell you, the same thing that particularly these Democratic leaders do that are all about just getting elected and status quo are the same things that have Republicans having people slaughtered. It's this incessant need to maintain power just for its own sake. And that's what the problem is. Power in of itself is not bad, it's what you do with it. And if you're holding the power just so you can have it and just for your friends and your close circles at the expense of New Yorkers, that's terrible. And we've seen Republicans do that, and we've seen Democrats do that. You see this governor right now, by the way, who gave us terrible, if you've been following, terrible district lines. We'll probably have, we're going to have two primaries, not as confusing. But besides that, if you're looking at this stuff, I have issues with the Democratic Party. I just want you to know that. I happen to be a Democrat, but I don't want to jump out of the frying pan into the fire. And so I'm going to push the party to be its best party. But if you're looking at Democratic lines, you're looking at who's going to fight to change the gun laws, who's going to fight for Roe v. Wade. Why would you take a Democratic congressperson from a swing district, an Obama-Trump district, who won their seat in a swing district to become your lieutenant governor. You might change the balance of Congress across this nation. And that's what this governor did, because he has a black skin with a Latino last name. That's all that mattered. Your election was all that mattered. To be damned. We got to stop electing people who think like that.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a quick question. Like, with the new marijuana laws changing in New York, a lot of what are your thoughts on marijuana? And another thing, I think Nikisha had a question too. Let's bring that up. And Derek, read that part, and then I'll ask another question.
Yeah, Nikisha says, now that weed is legal in the state, how would you propose keeping it out of teenagers' reach? They have access and no consequences, or better yet, the redirection.
Well, we have to do what we've done better than like alcohol and cigarette. What I've always said, and I believe this to be true, I don't think we know of too many people that haven't smoked weed because weed is illegal. And so the illegality of weed was only harming one subset of the community, because white teenagers, black teenagers use it at the same rate. Matter of fact, some studies show that white teenagers use it at a higher rate, but the people who were getting locked up were black and brown teenagers. And if you remember the abuses of stop and frisk, it's a whole nother conversation. By the way, stop, question, frisk is a tool that police need to be able to do their job. What happened is it was being abused, and we want to deal with that abuse. So if you talk about the abuses that occurred, the number one thing that people were getting stopped for is for they had weed, whether they did or not, was marijuana. And then to make sure that they got an arrest or can get a number, they would tell folks to empty their pocket if they had weed in their pocket. In your pocket was no problem. In open air it was. So now you were charged with open air. And so that weed has been used a very long time in an inequitable way for our community. So that had to stop. So we should just use the education models that we have. We've done very well when it comes to smoking. We should do more and better when it comes to alcohol. But it really makes no sense if something like alcohol is legal and weed is not. Especially when we have black mothers losing their children because of weed, when we have people not able to get jobs because of weed, you get tested for weed, but you don't get tested for alcohol. Like, none of this stuff makes sense. So I agree. We want to make sure there's education in there for our young people. We also have to make sure that we're clearing up people's records and that the money goes to the communities that have been harmed the most.
Jumaane, I got two questions for you. So I know you got to go. So what are you going to do to support black business? We saw so many black women and young men get together over the pandemic, create business. We saw people resigning from their jobs, starting business. What do you do to bring back the jobs and the people, like you said before, common folks, the traditional New Yorkers? You have a plan to support those young black folks with those dreams. They're not going to college. They want to do something else, do a trade school, start their business. What are your plans for that?
Well, you said a few things. One, I'm a supporter of trade schools. I'm a supporter of vocational schools. We just want to make sure that our young people are on track. But like you said, not everybody going to four-year college. And so you can earn a very good living with a trade. And so I do want to invest in trade schools and vocational schools. We got to make sure they're not ripping people off. In terms of small businesses, as I mentioned, I happen to have a small business. I had a small business. It didn't work out, but it was a great learning experience how businesses operate in our state. We give these big conglomerates tax breaks, but where are the tax breaks for our small businesses? Our small businesses, our black-owned businesses, immigrant-owned businesses are more likely to hire people who look like them in the communities they come from than anybody else. So we can give them, and I have been saying this for years, the same tax breaks we're going to give to a big multinational corporation, break it up and give it to small businesses with the same demands. You have to create a couple of jobs. You create the jobs, you get the tax incentives. We also have to make up, equity means you have to make up for time where inequity and inequality was happening. And so we have to make sure that not only we have money set aside for black and brown businesses, we have money set aside to help them set up and learn about their back office and make up for time that they didn't have bonding. So we have to all do all of those things. And we have to have a governor who's willing to stare down the people who are used to getting things their way and are used to getting all the contracts and say, no, we have to make sure we're setting and paving a way for other folks who haven't done it.
Okay. Jumaane, before this is the last question. And then I want to know people. I want you to tell where we could find Jumaane at. This is where we can find Jumaane, all his platforms, and donate some money to the brother's cause. You know, to get this brother elected. Jumaane, this is your black question for the night. Top 5 MCs, brother.
You know, see, this is the problem with top 5 because we don't have qualifiers. Like, you have people who are in the top 5 Hall of Fame, then what do you do with the rest? Because you can have, you have your Pac, Biggie, Happy Birthday, Jay and Nas, but they take out a lot of space. If I have to do it though, I'll include those. And there's somebody I always put in there that a lot of people leave out. I don't know why, but Andre 3000 is a master lyricist.
I give you that. You gotta give me one more though, man.
Now that's 5 right there though.
Oh, you said Pac, Biggie, Jay,
Nas.
Oh yeah.
Andre 3000. He said 5.
You got 5. All right.
Well, but I gotta say this: at some point we gotta have a conversation where we gotta put them on the Mount Rushmore, and then we gotta open up some more spaces.
Yeah, facts. I give you that. So
that's all I'm saying.
So Jumaane, what last words you want to say to the people, man, and tell them about the special election, tell them the dates and all that stuff like that for June.
The election's coming up. The election's coming up on June 28th. I'm asking you to come out, vote Jumaane Williams and my Lieutenant Governor Anna Maria Achilla. Go to JumaneWilliams.com. $5, $10 goes a long way. We make $1 out of 15 cents. You can catch me on Twitter at Jumaane Williams, Instagram at Jumaane.Williams, Facebook. You should check out our platform. We put out more policy papers than anybody else. We can win this. And we said it in 2018. Folks didn't believe us. We're saying it again. Hopefully they will. Hopefully you'll come out and support us. I really appreciate the opportunity to chop it up with y'all.
Thank you, brother. We appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. Get that baby. I'm glad you didn't wake that baby up. Man.
Have a night to y'all. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Peace, brother. Peace, man.